10-year period, we opened one store a year for 10 years. And it was a crazy ride. We must have had 6 or 7 robberies. It was crazy by this Estonian gang. Always a very good armed police presence in Leeds. I have the best bars in Leeds. I've got 4 or 5 bars upstairs. I've got VIP rooms as good as Claridge's. We wanted to make it so expensive that people wanted it because it was so expensive.
If you're looking to be inspired, motivated and educated by the business journeys and lessons learnt of Leeds business owners, then this is a podcast for you. And I'm your host, Phil Fraser. Before we start, I have one simple request of you. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on the app that you're listening on. When you walk around Leeds city centre, you'll regularly see Berry's Jewellers. Listen as we hear the history of this family business, the strategy that has seen them grow to 13 stores across the north, and the amazing world of luxury watch brands. There's also the dark side of the business, robbery. On today's Leeds Business Podcast, we have with us Simon Walton, Managing Director of Berry's Jewellers. Hi, Simon.
Hi, Phil. Hello, all the listeners out there. So delighted to be here and honoured to be invited when I've seen all your illustrious guests over the last few weeks. So, yeah.
Thank you. So, anybody who's wandered around Leeds city centre, Albion Street, Commercial Street, Victoria Quarter, will have come across Berry's Jewellers. So, give us a little bit of a very brief history lesson on Berry's.
Okay. Founded in 1897, 5 generations ago, and had various stores around, actually, the coast. At that stage, nobody really went abroad. People used to go to the coast, to Scarborough and various places. And my great-great-grandparents had shops around those places. The war came, they were a bit worried about them bombing, and they ended up with a store in Leeds called Berry's. Basically, it was run by my grandfather, and my grandfather was very ill. Unfortunately passed away, and my grandmother said to my father, who was not in the jewellery business at all, do you want to join the jewellery business? And he looked at her thinking she was absolutely crazy, because he knew absolutely nothing about watches and jewellery. I don't think he even owned a watch. And he basically came into the business, worked with his mother-in-law. I love my mother-in-law dearly, but there is no way in a million years that I could work with my mother-in-law. And they worked together for 25 years. And had a very nice store in Leeds, and we're still trading in that position in Albion Street. And then in 1989, I left university. I went to university in Manchester and did the same management course as Nick Howarth at UMIST in Manchester, and wasn't quite sure what to do. And my father said, well, why don't you come into business? So I joined. He said to me, it's going to take you 10 years to know anything. And actually, it's taken a lot longer than 10 years. I think I'm still learning. And I came into the business, and he said, well, we have one store. Why don't we look at various opportunities and open stores up? So over basically a 10-year period, we opened one store a year for 10 years. And it was a crazy ride. There were all sorts of opportunities. There was a recession going on in the early 90s. And we ended up from one store to 10, 11 stores in 10 years, as I said. So we then spent the next 10 years catching up, systems and people, and then the next following 10 years buying properties and redeveloping and whatever else. So we now have 13 stores based around the north of England. As you said, Phil, we've got 8 stores in Leeds, so we are kind of very highly represented in Leeds. 3 stores in York, a store in Nottingham, Newcastle and Windsor. So yeah, 5 generations. There are 3 of us working together now. My son Oliver came in the business during COVID and has really taken it to a duck to water, and absolutely loving it.
Okay. Now, you touched on loads of different things there that I want to dig into. And you touched on your dad working with his mother-in-law. Obviously, it's a family business. What are the difficulties in working in a family business?
Good question. Obviously, it's non-stop, and it's very difficult to get away from it. And it's finding that dividing line between kind of switch off and work non-stop. It has huge advantages, speedness, quick decisions, and listen, it's words. And I'm very lucky. I've had the most incredible working relationship with my father. We are quite famous in the jewellery business because we work so closely together, respect one another. I think it's very difficult when a new generation comes in to be allowed responsibility and independence at a young age, and for that older generation to hand that over. And certainly I found that with my son, that there was no kind of learning period. Is straight away wants to start selling expensive timepieces. But I had a very, very lucky, incredible working relationship with my father. And I still do today. He's still working 3 days a week, and it's brilliant. But it's not easy. Family businesses can cause huge arguments in families, or they can draw families very close together. It all depends as well how many family members are in the business, and the more family members in the business, the more complicated it can become. But we've had a smooth journey, and I think the success of our business is very much down to that smooth journey.
I mean, obviously, you've been in the business a long time now, but when you first came in, was there any issue of, it's the boss's son?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been on a good university degree. I spent a year in Switzerland learning about the diamond watch business, and I came to the business, and my grandmother said, "Right, the only thing you can be in charge of are Dunhill and DuPont lighters," and I was in charge of this little department that took very little money. And I became an expert in these lighters, and I found it unbelievably frustrating. But that's how that generation was, and gradually I learned and I had more responsibility. Yeah, it's just different times. It's just different times, and the youth today want to do things very quickly. It's one of those businesses that there is an awful lot to learn. Apart from running a business, you've got to learn all about the whole industry and the product knowledge of watches, jewellery. It's complicated. So people buy from people, and people buy when they have confidence that you know what you're talking about. So you can't, you're found out very quickly in this industry.
Sure. And again, going back to something you mentioned, you went through a process of a new shop every year for 10 years. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, my father was very, very entrepreneurial, and he established a business that was supplying gold chains at the time, that was the fashion, to 300-400 little shops around the country, and therefore developed good relationships with some of these family businesses who were coming to their end of their life, and didn't have families to pass on to, or just wanted to sell. And there were various opportunities that came up, and we were just in the right place at the right time with the right connections. I remember one story where he went for a haircut in the Victoria Quarter, and the girl cutting his hair said, "My friend works in the jewellers in the Victoria Quarter and the closing." So my dad said, "What are you talking about?" So he said, "Forget the haircut." So I think he had half a haircut. Came running back to the shop. And about 2 days later, we had a shop in the Victoria Quarter. So it's there were various opportunities that arose that actually don't arise today. The watch brands were much more accessible. You could get on the phone to Cartier and Rolex and Patek Philippe and almost open a new shop up, which is today just doesn't happen. They're closing rather than opening. So we were very lucky. We were in the right time. And we really took advantages of some fabulous stories. Watches Switzerland at the time were in trouble, and we took over their shop in Leeds and Newcastle. One little story, I remember interviewing our watchmaker in Newcastle, who was from Sunderland. I didn't understand a word he was talking about in a really broad accent. And the shop was empty, there was no lights on. And there was a knock on the door, and there was a Newcastle United footballer, a defender, a Belgian footballer, I can't think of his name, coming to pick his watch up. And we opened the door up, so what do you want? The shop's closed. And Watches Switzerland at the time hadn't told him the shop was closed. He'd come in to pick this watch up and was horrified that Watches Switzerland had gone, and we were going to open in a month's time. So it was a crazy period, exciting for me after having just come out of university, and I became an expert in kind of shop fitting and recruitment, and off we went. And it was, as I said, we didn't really have any computer systems. It was picked up all the various watch brands as went along, and before we knew it, 10 years later, we had great number of shops.
Okay, so it was opportunistic rather. I mean, obviously, there's a strategy underlying it, but it was opportunistic by bit.
Yeah, I think financially we were strong enough to do it. The strategy was to branch out. There was the opportunities there to do it, and we also had the connections with the watch brands to build up a watch portfolio in each of the cities. And we also knew the good cities to trade from as well, from our father's dealings with all these various shops around the country.
Okay. And you mentioned strong enough to finance that. Was this all driven and built from sort of cash flow within the business, or was it funded?
In the beginning, not. This industry is hugely cash intensive. It is one of the barriers to entry, really. It's absolutely crazy. We pay for all our stock in 30 days. There's very little of our stock is borrowed from suppliers. The majority of stock in Berries is our own stock. The watch brands, in today's day and age, if they bring a new range out, you don't pick and choose. You buy the whole range, end of. So in the beginning, yes, it was we used banks, and we've had a great relationship with Barclays for many years and still do. But today we use our reserves, and we're fortunate enough to have a good asset base.
Right.
It's hugely cash intensive. It's bonkers.
Yeah.
When we get invoices from Patek Philippe, it is really, it's very interesting. You have invoices per month for £1 million. It's really quite crazy.
So talking about the shops, can you tell us how much value is in each shop?
I think from a security point of view, it's probably best that I don't say. But as you can imagine, many millions. You only have to look in the window and look at the value of items, but it's a lot, too much, built up over a long time. The wonderful thing about this industry is that the stock doesn't really date. It actually, over the years, has gone up. So it's not like the fashion industry that you have it, or the car industry, or that you have it and the stock devalues. Generally, the stock goes up. We've got an interesting, literally, couple of days in the watch industry because of the tariffs in America, that Trump is threatening a 39% tariff on the Swiss watch industry. The president of Switzerland and probably the president of Rolex and Patek Philippe are trying to negotiate with Trump as we speak, and there could be huge price rises around the world, because the prices generally around the world are pretty constant. So they can't have huge price rises in America without price rises around the rest of the world. So generally our stock has gone up in value, and it's a long-term, Phil. This is not a quick buy and sell business. This is generational built up assets over a long time.
Yeah. And I was going to say, there's big money sitting in a shop. I know you've had issues with robberies.
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
Well, I don't know a jewellery shop, unfortunately, in the land that hasn't had an issue. We were liked by some Estonians who were coming over to the UK, obviously with the EU very easily, landing in the UK, coming up to Leeds. There was somebody in the UK who was pointing them towards Berries, and we must have had 6 or 7 robberies. It was crazy, by this Estonian gang. There weren't real guns, but nobody's going to argue with them at the time. And all in and out in 2 minutes. There was a policeman, actually, I'm going to shout out his name, a guy called Mick Kelly, who I think is retired, who was absolutely brilliant, based in Leeds. And he basically took it upon himself to catch these guys and to trace them. He went to Estonia. He got funding from West Yorkshire Police. And gradually, with a bit of luck from DNA, they traced these guys, arrested the whole group, arrested a few years later the guys, actually, the Estonian guys in the UK, organising it. But yeah, it was a nightmare for our staff. It was a nightmare for us. Our insurance companies loved us, as you can imagine. But yeah, unfortunately, I've had a few 4 or 5 incidents over the years. It's part of the job, I'm afraid. I think all the jewellery shops and watch shops around the country have increased their security. And all we try and do, it's a bit like a house, you try and move the problem elsewhere. And we have very good security now.
Must be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it's a terrifying experience. As anybody who, God forbid, has had a burglary at home or a robbery at home, it's an awful experience. And people don't come to work for that experience. So we do what we can now to protect ourselves and protect our staff. And yeah, the police are very understanding. There's always a very good armed police presence in Leeds. But the risk is always there, and we are not complacent, and we're on it 24/7. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's just change tack slightly.
Yeah.
We read in the papers all the time the high street's dying.
Yeah.
And you're expanding. So how do you square that? How do you square that?
I get asked this all the time. We've just done 2 years of, well, you only have to wander around Leeds and see the monies that we have spent on shop fitting, and it's millions of pounds. We've just opened a Patek Philippe boutique in Leeds. It's the only one outside London. We have a Vacheron boutique. It's one of 3 in the country. We have the most incredible Breitling boutique around the corner on Commercial Street. We've expanded our Omega boutique, and we have a very large Tudor area, as well as our Victoria Quarter. And people say to me, why have you got all these shops in Leeds when the high street's dying? So it's a great question. And basically, is the high street dying? And it's a good question. In our industry, I don't think it is. I think in COVID, everything went online. I think even now, we have a very good website. We sell an incredible amount of expensive watches and jewellery online, in particular watches. But people want that experience, and people are returning to the high street. And what the watch companies have realised is that to compete with the internet, it has to be an experience. And some of our shops are like palaces. Phil, I have the best bars in Leeds. I've got 4 or 5 bars upstairs. I've got VIP rooms as good as Claridge's. And we have to make that experience absolutely incredible. And it's our way of competing, and that's what we have to do. The brands also have gone away from a multi-brand environment where you walked into the family jewellers and the mama and papa said, I want to buy my grandson a 21st watch. What watch would you advise? And you bring out 6 or 7 brands. Those days have gone in the major cities, and the brands want their own boutiques, and they want you to be immersed in that world. And you either don't do it or our competition do it. So we've decided to do it, and we've opened these boutiques up, and they're as good as any boutique in the world. They really are. But that's why we've done it. Would I have done it without the brand pressure? Possibly not. But it's the way our industry has gone. So our industry has invested hugely in the high street. If you go to any shopping mall, any major city, anywhere in the world, you will see an incredible amount of watch shops. And we've gone away. We're not like the fashion industry. We have invested in bricks and mortar. What we rely on, this is the part of the issue, is that as some of the fashion shops are closing, we rely on a strong city centre. There is no point opening these fabulous shops if we haven't got the shops around us. And that is becoming an issue.
Right. And just on, obviously, you've got some gorgeous boutiques, and you're now encouraging me to come back in and buy another watch. Is that funded by yourselves, or do they contribute? How does that work?
Yeah, so we basically do most of the shop fit. We what's called white box it. We have to pay 100%. But then the brand furniture is shared 50-50. You can't imagine how expensive this furniture is. It's bonkers. It is absolutely bonkers. We've even had Panerai shop fitters arrive from Italy, and they fly over to do a shop fit, and they come over with no tools. Now, what the hell they bring them over for, I've no idea. But it's eye-watering. It is eye-watering. But this is the brand. We've just opened this Patek Philippe boutique in Leeds, and our balustrade is a fortune. I'm not even telling anybody how much it is. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. The brand is embarrassing. It's beautiful. And I said to the brand, this is crazy. I prefer the money to go to charity. And they said, well, we either do this or we don't. And they have their own rules around the world, and it has got to be absolutely the same. In fact, in some of our boutiques, we don't even have berries on. They don't like the fact that we have berries, our staff have berries badges on. It's got to be totally brand orientated and the brand identity.
Wow.
So it's a challenge, and you either work with it or you don't. But when they do their design, that's the design you've got to go with.
Right. Okay. We're going to get onto your how-to, which is all about selling luxury brands. But before we do, I need to speak to our listeners and viewers about the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. The Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal has two sides to it. My side of it, every week, I bring you, free of charge, fascinating, motivational, and just really, really interesting guests like Simon every single week. You, listener and viewer, have one thing to do, and that is to recommend this podcast to one other person you feel will get a benefit from it. So that's the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. Fair deal, Simon?
Yep,
fair deal. Okay, so tell us what this week's how-to is, and then tell us how to do it.
Well, my how to do it is how I deal with luxury brands. It's quite unique. I am a politician, basically, I think is my job description. But there are lots of luxury brands around, whether it be fashion or whatever, cars. But I would just give my insight into what I've learned about dealing with certainly luxury watch brands and jewellery brands. The first thing I've realised is the brand is bigger than you. And however much you argue against it, you have to realise that they are bigger than you. You've got to respect the brand, in every way. It's their rules. If you try and cut corners, they don't want you to cut corners. It's their rules. Abide them. You've got to build relationships. Brands are all about relationships. And I've also realized that you've got to build relationships with as higher up in the organization as you possibly can do. Whether it be the brand manager in the UK, deal with somebody in Switzerland or Europe. The more relationships you can build up with a brand, the better. It's a bit of a game. Go to as many events as you can. Most of this networking is done I've done it, whether it be Wimbledon or football or skiing or whatever. Most of these things are done outside of work. Build relationships. Pay on time. It's the most basic thing you can say to a brand, but you'd be amazed how many retailers mess brands around with payment. Pay on time. Also, that when you are a multi-brand retailer, each brand wants to feel important. And the most important thing is tell that brand how important they are, how much you love them. It is like dealing with 15 ex-wives. So you've got to tell them, you may not tell your ex-wives that you love them, but tell them how important you are to your business. And that's what I've learned. And hopefully our listeners can take something of that.
Fascinating. Just taking that a stage further. I mean, you are obviously selling very, very expensive stuff. And a lot of people by default in commercial situations try to race to the bottom. Oh, we're cheaper. How do you sell a luxury product to somebody when it's not on price?
Basic quality. It's quality and it's rarity and scarcity. A lot of the products that we sell today, people want to know what the realizable value is the moment they walk out the shop. And they don't want to lose money or gone are the days of walking out of places and just losing half the value. That's not what the watch industry is about these days. So it's about education. It's about telling the client about the brand. Most of the homework has been done before. Years ago, people walk in and say, I want a watch, I want an engagement ring, I want a diamond. But the client of today is so much more informed than they used to be, or clearly from the internet. So half the job is done for us. For us, it's about building relationships. Our clients are very dear to us. We have a lot of long-term relationships. We're not really interested in the one-off sale. We want repeat business. And it's all about customer service. It's all about doing the job better than your competition and making the experience special. So that's really what we try and do. It's not I heard an interesting thing about Richard Mille. Richard Mille are very, very expensive watches. And Richard Mille, I don't know whether by mistake or what happened, but he wanted to make some unbelievably expensive watches when he first started manufacturing. And price wasn't an issue. He almost wanted to make them so expensive that most people couldn't afford them. And it was almost inverse marketing. And it's words, and it's incredible what he's done, I think, in 10 years of what an incredible brand he's built up. But price was almost kind of, he didn't want to make it value. He wanted to make it so expensive that people wanted it because it was so expensive.
Okay. Well, I'm sure our viewers and listeners are willing me to ask, what's the most expensive watch you've sold, and how much was it, and what was it?
I sold a Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime, and it was £2.5 million.
Wow.
That is one of the most expensive watches that have been sold at retail in the UK. It was sold at £2.5 million. If it went to auction today, double, if not more. So it was like buying a piece of art.
Yeah.
But we do sell some incredible timepieces. We really do. And it's we're very lucky to work in this industry of working with fine watches, which is another whole podcast, the whole watch industry and the rarity and what goes into making a watch. And we are very fortunate to be in Leeds and to have the majority of local clients in the north of England buying some incredible watches from us.
With that type of stuff and the top end stuff, are you buying to order?
No, the top end ones is application. Who you are, what you do, how many watches you've got, how long you've known Veris for, what's your shoe size. They want to know everything. So yeah, we don't stock things like that, and they are really special orders. But the brands are manufacturing them around the world in very, very small numbers. But you have to apply and almost kind of justify why your client needs it rather than somebody in Dubai or China or the Middle East.
Right. And are you still, I know we've talked about this before, do you still only get a certain number of this watch or that watch and then that's it, that's your allocation?
Depending on which brand, we have an allocation of certain numbers. We almost allocate those numbers kind of when we get the allocation on that time. But there's other brands where the stock is available, and and we can reorder, and within 2 weeks we've had a replenishment stock. So it all depends on the brand, and all depends on the numbers that they are producing.
And obviously we've talked a lot about watches. What's the split business-wise, watches to jewellery?
Probably do 70% watches, 30% jewellery. The business was a jewellery business and still does very well with jewellery. We manufacture most of our own jewellery. We have our in-house designers. We have a whole department sourcing colour stones from around the world. So jewellery is very important to us, and that is our DNA. And I would say that the kind of we are known locally as well as very good jewelers, apart from watch people. But the watch business is a huge business internationally. So we've talked about watches, but jewelry is very important to Veris.
Just go back. You talked about networking before. Obviously, you sponsor the tennis tournament. How did that come about?
How did that come about? The Matt Haycox, who will be known to some of these listeners, ended up buying the rights to a tennis competition in Manchester, and he said to me, "Do you fancy doing it in Leeds?" And I said, "I'd love to." So we've done it about 5-6 years. It's at Hazelwood Castle. Most people come and some watch a bit of tennis. It's basically a big networking, just fun, social, and it's a way for us to entertain clients. But it's really ended up being a date in the diary for Yorkshire. Really, it really is a fabulous event, and we've now got clients begging for an invite. It's really become a go-to event. So no, it's been great. We do lots of events. Events are a big part of our business now. We talk about, I don't think the high street, there's no death of the high street, but high net worth clients would prefer to come to an event than wander around the shops. So we do lots of events at Grantley Hall, for example, at car events, and it's a way of networking and just meeting clients really outside the normal retail environment. So yeah, we do a lot of events, and they're very successful, and we work very hard at them.
Yeah, and I suppose that's behind the brand building of things like
Correct.
yeah, like the rugby sponsorship and the back of buses. I'm often behind a bus with your name on.
Yeah, my father was a director for Leeds Rhinos for I think 15 years. We've been kind of, as you support Leeds United, I'm a big Rhino supporter, so it was our pleasure to sponsor them. And although he's come off the board at Leeds Rhinos, we carry on the sponsorship, and it's nice to support the local rugby team, even though we have kind of mixed success over the years. And it's a nice way of just giving back a little bit, isn't it? And certainly, I'm sure, good recognition being on the television regularly.
Yep. Okay. Now, every week, or we've recently started introducing a new section to the podcast, which is my brilliant business idea. Now, as entrepreneurs, we're always wandering around with brilliant business ideas in our heads that we never actually get around to doing. So, Simon, what's your brilliant business idea that's been rolling around in your head that you'll never ever do, but you still think is a brilliant idea?
Yeah, I did think of actually loaning watches out. So almost kind of somebody coming in, borrowing a watch for a wedding or an occasion. I thought, what a great idea. And I've never done it. I'm scared to do it because I'm not quite sure how many watches will come back or financially how it would work. But that was one of my ideas. But yeah, that was one of my ideas that's rolling around my head. One of these days might happen. I don't know. I think it actually is available. I think some people do it, but it's not something that berries have gone down the route of yet.
I suppose you'd have to put down a hell of a deposit.
You really would. Yeah. It sounds a nightmare right from the word go. I've got enough headaches around that.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's a brilliant. If somebody out there wants to do it, they can come to Simon and explain the math. Yeah. Explain the math.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the future look like for Berries?
Yeah, it's a family business. We want, as I said, my son's come into it. I've got a younger son who's about to go to uni. Who knows whether he'll come into it. It's very hard to grow in this business. As I said, the high street's pretty saturated with shops. It's very difficult to open up shops with the brands. We've got one or two ideas of what to do over the next few years. We've done a huge investment the last 2 years. I think we did 6 shop fits in 2 years, and these are big projects. So to be quite honest, I'm happy just letting the dust settle, literally, and just see what happens. The high street's a tough place, as we've said. I don't know what's in store for the economy over the next few years. So it's just, we bought some properties. We have a bit of a side property business, so we've invested in a few commercial properties. And we're just seeing what happens in the high street and keeping a close eye on activities in the watch and jewellery business.
Okay, so before you go, every guest gets to give another Leeds business a shout out. So who are you going to give a shout out to?
Green Room Bar, I think are doing an absolutely brilliant job on social media. I think my son runs every Saturday morning and absolutely loves it. And there just seems to be, whoever mentions anybody about the social scene in Leeds is about Green Room. So we have a big social media presence, and I think we're learning a lot from what those guys do. So yeah, great job. Well done.
Okay, there'll be a link to Green Room Bar in the show notes below. Simon, thank you very much indeed. It's been absolutely fascinating.
Thanks, Bill. I've enjoyed it. My first podcast. So yeah, I enjoyed every moment.
So that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure you hit the follow button so every new episode gets sent straight to your phone. See you next week.